This is the corrective remedial session. I'm Miss Blow and I'm tutoring Lexi Ellis today. This is session number 2. Today the goal is to learn new vocabulary that will be used in the text that she's going to read. And the activity that she has just completed is the semantic mapping with the difficult text that she's going to see in context today. So we will start that. This is the vocabulary here. That she has put into mapping. She has done synonym, antonym, example, and definition for each word. And now what we're going to do, now that she has done that exercise, is talk about them. So, Lexi, your first word was intermixed. So, can you tell me what intermixed means? Looking at your... Yeah, it means mixed together. And then the synonym for that is what?
Joined.
Okay, and then the opposite, which is an antonym.
Alone.
Okay, and then what was your example?
The trees in the photo were intermixed with the houses.
Okay, and here is her picture that she drew for that. Okay, and then your next word was slackening. So tell me, what's the definition of slackening?
Becoming less active.
Okay, and what's a synonym for that, which means the same as?
Easing.
And then an antonym?
Gripping.
Okay, and then what was your example?
The pressure was slackening off.
Okay, good. And now we have the word vital.
Extremely important.
Okay, and then a synonym for that?
Necessary.
What about an antonym, the opposite of?
Unimportant.
And then what did you draw there? She drew it's a kitty cat and a bowl of food, and she says that the food is vital to the kitty cat. Okay, and then her next word was tumultuously. What does tumultuously mean?
Noisily.
Noisily. And then what is a synonym for that?
Violently.
And an antonym?
Quietly.
And then tell me what your example was.
The angry people protested tumultuously.
Tumultuously. And then here we have her drawing. She drew some angry people with their arms up. And then your last word was resilient. What does resilient mean?
Able to spring back into shape.
Okay, and then what's a synonym?
Bouncy.
And an antonym?
Stretched out.
Okay, and then what is your example?
The hair tie is very resilient.
Okay, so it's a stretchy hair tie, and it stretches back, or it goes back into shape. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to read, she's going to read Ray Bradbury, All Summer in a Day, to me. And so go ahead, Lexi, if you'll start right there.
It's too long.
Start reading, please.
Look, see yourself. The children pressed to each other like so many roses. So many weeds intermixed, peering out for a look at the hated sun. It rained. It had been raining for several years, thousands upon thousands of days compounded and filled from one end to the other with rain. With the drum and the gush of water, with the sweet crystal fall of showers and the concussion of storms so heavy there were tidal waves coming over the islands. 1,000 forests have been crushed under the rain and grown up 1,000 times to be crushed again. And this was the way life was forever on the planet Venus, and this was what? Where am I?
Here you said, and this was the way life was forever on the planet Venus. And this was the
schoolroom of the children and the rocket men and women who had come to the reigning world to set up civilization and live out their lives. It's stopping, yes, yes.
Margot?
Margot stood apart from them, from these children who could never remember a time when there wasn't rain and rain and rain. They were all 9 years old, and if there had been a day 7 years ago when the sun came out for an hour and showed its face to the stunned world, they could not recall. Sometimes at night she heard them stir in remembrance, and she knew they were dreaming and remembering gold or yellow crayon or a corn large enough. I think the sun is a flower to buy the world with. She knew they thought they remembered the warmness, like a blushing in the face and the body and the arms and the legs and tatting drum. But when they always awoke into the tatting... What?
It says, she knew they thought they remembered a warmness, like a blushing in the face, in the body, in the arms and legs, and trembling hands. But then they always awoke to the tatting drum, the endless shaking down of clear bead necklaces upon the roof, the walk, the gardens, the forest, and their dreams were gone. Now do it like that. Make sure you're pausing at all the commas and stopping at the periods.
All day yesterday they had read in class about the sun, about how like a lemon it was and how hot. They had written all of the small stories or essays or poems about it. I think the sun is a flower that blooms for just 1 hour. That is Margaret's poem.
Put your finger up here and follow the words.
Read in a quiet voice in the still classroom while the rain was falling outside. "Ah, you didn't write that," protested one of the boys. "I did," said Margot. "I did, William," said the teacher. "But that was yesterday." Now the rain was slackening, and the children were crushed in the great thick windows.
Slackening. Here's our word. What does slackening mean in this case? The rain was slackening.
Slowing down.
Slowing down, letting off. Good.
"Where's teacher? She'll be back." "She better hurry, we'll miss it." They turned themselves on a feverish wheel.
They turned on themselves like a feverish wheel.
All fumbling spokes. Margaret stood alone. She was very frail. She was a very frail girl who looked as if she had been lost in the rain for years, and the rain had washed the blue from her eyes and the red from her mouth, and the yellow from her hair. She was an old photograph dusted from an album, whitened away, and if she spoke at all, her voice would be a ghost. Now she stood separate, staring at the rain in the loud, wet world beyond the huge class.
What do they mean here when it says, if she spoke at all, her voice would be a ghost?
I don't know.
Think about it. What do you think that means? Let's look at the paragraph again. Margaret stood alone. She was a very frail girl who looked as if she had been lost in the rain for years, and the rain had washed out the blue from her eyes, and the red from her mouth, and the yellow from her hair. She was an old photograph, dusted from an album, whitened away, and if she spoke at all, her voice would be a ghost. Now she stood separate, staring at the rain and the loud, wet world beyond the huge glass. Keep going from there. Let's see if you can make some meaning.
"What are you looking for?" said William. Margot said nothing. "Speak when you're spoken to." He gave her a shove. But she did not move. Rather, she let herself be moved only by him and nothing else. They edged away from her. They would not look at her, and felt them go away. And this was because
Put your finger up there and follow the words.
This was because she would play no games with them in echoing tunnels of the underground city. If they tagged her and ran, she stood blinking after them and did not follow. When the class sang songs about happiness and life and games, her lips barely moved. Only when they sang about the sun and the summer did her lips move as she watched the drenched windows.
Go.
And then, of course, the biggest crime of all was that she had come here only 5 years ago from Earth. And she remembered the sun and all the way the sun was and the sky was when she was 4 in Ohio, and they had been on Venus all their lives, and they had only been 2 years old when the last sun came out, and had long since forgotten the color, the heat of it, and the way it really was. But Margaret remembered. "It's like a penny," she said once, eyes closed. "No, it's not," the other children cried. "It's like a fire," she said, "in the stove." "You're lying. You don't remember," cried the children. But she remembered and stood quietly apart from all of them and watched the pattering windows that blooms for just 1 hour. And once a minute ago she had refused to shower in the school shower rooms, had clutched her hands to her ears and over her head, screaming the water mustn't touch her head. Soon after that, dimly, as she sensed it, she was different, and they knew her one difference and kept away. There was talk that her father and mother were taking her back to Earth next year. It seemed vital to her that they do so, though it would not mean the loss of thousands of dollars to her family, and so...
Wait a minute. What does vital mean in that sentence? It says there was talk that her father and mother were taking her back to Earth next year. It seemed vital to her that they do so, though it would mean the loss of thousands of dollars to her family.
Important.
Okay.
And so the children hated her for all these reasons of big and little consequence. They hated her pale snow face, while her waiting silence, her thinness, and her possible future. "Get away," the boy gave her another push. "What are you waiting for?" And then, for the first time...
Keep going. Use your finger to follow your place if you lose it.
I didn't lose my place.
Okay, keep going.
And then, for the first time, she turned and looked at them, and what she was waiting for was in her eyes. "Well, don't wait around here," cried the boy savagely. "You won't see nothing." Her lips moved. "Nothing," he cried. It was all a joke, wasn't it? He turned to the other children. "Nothing's happening today, is it?" They all blinked at him, and then Outstanding laughed and shook their heads. "Nothing, nothing. Oh, but," Margaret whispered, and her eyes helpless. "But this is the day the sciences predict, they say. They know the sun." "All a joke," said the boy, and sneezed and seized her roughly. "Hey, everyone, let's put her in the closet before teacher comes." "No," said Margaret, falling back. They surged about her, caught her up, and bore her, protesting and then pleading and then crying, back into a tunnel, a room, and a closet, where they had slammed and locked the door.
What did they just do? What happened?
They put her in the closet so the teacher couldn't find her.
Okay.
They stood looking at the door and saw it tremble from her beating and throwing herself against it.
Keep going.
Are you trying to fail?
Keep going.
Then, smiling, they turned and went out and back down to the tunnel. Just as the teacher arrived. "Ready, children?" She glanced at her watch.